Okay, thank you everyone. It's an honor and pleasure to be in this conference, Confer, to talk a little bit about AI. And today in this session, it's actually 45 minutes, it's quite long. It's one of the longer sessions I've done. I'll talk a little bit about the journey that myself, my company has been going through and how we have evolved our solutions to go away from the chatbot hype into talking about something that is more advanced in terms of in the form of an email bot and Documentbot that we have coined the term simplified digital employee. Then I will take you all into a little bit more of a deeper dive into the actual technology, at least in the manner that I am able to take you all through. I'm not a data scientist myself, but I have worked a lot with the AI for the last few years. Then I'll walk a little bit about how we have a tool that we can use to that everyone can use to interact with the data, the machine learning model in the bottom, and a little bit more of a demo about that. Then, last but not least, I would like to squeeze in some topic of what we need to consider when we as a community working with AI in this country. So let me just start by saying a couple of words about myself. My name is Eric Lang. I'm the co-founder and the COO of Simplified. Have a really technological background. I've been a programmer. I worked with different technologies like .NET, Java, database, CRM systems. And then I got tired of programming altogether, so that I became a solution designer, business analyst, product manager. And 4 years ago, when I felt like I was ready, I jumped out of my daytime job, and then I started a company called Simplify. So most of the times I would consider myself that my technological sense have allowed me to think a bit ahead. One of the few people who can actually start a business without actually being the focus on the business, but actually on the technology, but combining the possibilities of what we can make out of in terms of commercialization of it. So most of the softwares that we make is business to business, has a little bit less of a need of a very, very, very good user experience. It suits me well because I'm colorblind, so it makes it also very difficult for me to design very catchy solutions. But nonetheless, it is user friendly, it's really effective, and that's how we differentiate ourselves in the market. So a couple of words about Simplify, which is the company I've started in 2017. It's not that long ago, but we have enjoyed a tremendous growth. Now, as you can see, I'm not native Norwegian, and also some of the fellow founders aren't either. So for us, we have a very international team. And that allows us to also think globally already from day one. So yes, we have a headquarters in Oslo, Norway, but we have also offices around the globe. Right now, we're running 140 employees, and our main development center is in Pune, India, but as well as also in Kiev, in Ukraine. And recently, we established also the sales team in India as well as in Netherlands. So consider that we are able to round up the experts around the globe. Then we have what we consider is also a top-notch engineering team. But just so that we also have thought really much about in terms of GDPR, cross-border hosting. So we also have to go a few more steps to make sure that the different data is only supposed to be visible to certain employees. A bit about the future, like most of the times, AI companies started around 2016, 17 in Norway. Quite a lot of them has been caught on this hype of chatbot. So we are no exception. I worked a bit with IBM Watson, and I've been exposed to how cool that technology is, at least at that time as from the outset, and have built a few chatbots using the IBM Watson technologies. And then I figured that this is a technology that could have tremendous impact on the society. And that was one of the main reasons I decided that I need to leave my daytime job and put all my time and effort into building it. But later on, then I realized that having just a chatbot to chat, especially for those of you who are very technical, you will understand that it's no more than just an advanced search engine. It's a Q&A based. And we wanted to do more. We wanted the chatbot to be helpful. And as an engineering guy myself, a technical guy, I like to focus also as well on the integration to make sure that beyond understanding of the inquiry of what's being asked, that you are also able to be helpful in executing on the task. So if you drag this a bit further, basically, ultimately, we would envision that the businesses will look like this in the future, where it would be just a bunch of software robots performing the task based on the inquiry that is coming from customers, colleagues, vendors, and they're able to do things in a very automated manner and quick, not to say the least. And the world would be a much better place and be a lot more efficient. And the way we do it is through simplified digital employees. So if you were to think about how we as an employee work on a daily basis, we will be having some sort of interaction with the outside world. And the outside world will be telling us to do something or asking us some questions or making requests or whatever that might be. And based on that inquiry, we will be making decisions based on our expertise and knowledge, what we need to do about it. And from there on, we would execute the task itself, whether it is on the chat, email, it doesn't really matter. The thing is, what we needed to do with AI is to find ways to automate and each of these elements within a job. So whether it is chat, we have a chatbot, which is one of the first product, but then also later on we have evolved the chatbot into emailbot and Documentbot. I'll go back to the point of what does that mean by evolving. And then we have also the decision engine that we're able to contain the business logic, having a way where you can define how that works, and then to define the necessary integration with other systems that you will be needed to use to complete the task. I mean, ultimately, for an employee, there's a vast majority of the tasks that you do on a daily basis is really to move information from point A to point B. So it's very important that all of these elements exist together in order to be able to do the necessary task. Now, I've defined the title of this talk as in going beyond chatbots, the next generation of the NLU solutions. Now, in order to automate chat or email reading or processing or automating document processing, all of these elements, there's a lot of text in it. And the ability for the machine learning, the AI, to be able to interpret the text, that's the essence of what we need to do in order to automate that part. The rest is, of course, from the engineering people you have out there, it's quite simple. It's simply defining the rules and defining the API integrations if needed. If not, we have a bunch of RPA solutions out there as well. Robotic process automation is also a very hot topic in the recent years. Now, chat is quite easy. With the chatbot, you just have a sentence of maybe 100, 150 characters that you need to parse it through the machine learning model. And there are many, of course, standardized ways of doing that. Dialogflow from Google, IBM Watson, Microsoft Lewis. These are all part of these platforms that you're able to use to build your own chatbot to recognize a sentence or two. But when we moved to email, that became a much more complex story, because an email usually contains a lot more text, could be even up to a couple of pages, depends on how much people bother to write. So then the ability to analyze the email will become much more complex. And also, not to say the least, within chat, every sentence would be about one thing, whereas an email often contains several topics within one. And when we go to document, then it becomes even more complex, because then we will need to also incorporate the possibilities that a document is not necessarily Word or PDF, it might be a picture, OCR, optical character recognition becomes also important. But either way, we have done the necessary work to take these products and making it user-friendly, as well as making it to fit with the whole holistic pictures. So these are our basic building blocks when we build digital employees. We can chain them together to perform any task that we would be seeing quite often in today's world. So I'm not calling this a digital assistant, virtual assistant, like there's many of solutions in the market would do, because the word assistant implies that it requires somebody to guide, to make the final approval. It's not independent. But what we make with these tools are able to be very independent and can function as a fully functional team member within an organization as well. So if we chain an email bot with an API, then we have an email dispatcher, email coordinator, somebody who receives mail on a daily basis, and based on the content, forward to the right department, to the right team, to the right person to process. Or if somebody who are able to handle the incoming requests on the support, whether it is employee support, IT support, you will have the necessary modules that you chain together and make that work. Somebody who processes claims for insurance, there's usually a lot of claims coming in for insurance through emails and documents. And same modules, they will be trained differently. They will be set up differently with the necessary integration and business logic, and then it will be fully functional. This is how we scale, not just within Norway, but this is how we scale also internationally. Just to show that, unlike most of the talks that we have gone through, that talking about what we can do or what we have done for one customer, this is the standard solution components that we have built that would apply to any given customer in any given industries. Of course, the most notable ones, some of them are actually from Norway, but some of them are also abroad as well. We have also been chosen by Arkiverket, the National Agency of Archive, to work out how we can make this work in their day-to-day life as well. We also have a lot of customers in the bank and finance, as well as telecom as well. And it's easy to work with our technology. So we actually have partners who are taking our solution out to their network in order to expand our horizon, expand our reach to the customers, because we believe that in terms of email process automation, we have something truly unique. So a bit on the key technology. Now, when we are talking about handling text, it's the field of the machine learning, the AI, it's called the natural language processing. And this is our simplified data science team that we have recruited. And it's actually not updated. We have a couple more on this list as well. They are the one who works with the core technology. They're the one who makes sure that we can train any given type of take any given type of training data on the text, email, document, or chat, and have a way of training a bot that will make it work reliably. So natural language processing, it has actually two main fields. The one is on the natural language understanding, the ability to understand the incoming text, the reading part of it. Then the other one is the natural language generation, which is the writing part of it. Now, from our perspective in Simplify, the ability to understand the incoming, it belongs totally within the natural language understanding. And we believe also it's one of the easier kind of ML within the complexity level. We can, of course, also work with some basic ways of generating a reply based on what we have seen. You guys have seen that as well in a lot of settings, like in the LinkedIn chat, when you have some message or some emails on Outlook, they will have some suggested reply that you can have. That's one form of the natural language generation. Actually, coming back with some sort of a reply is not difficult. I mean, for myself, I have standard replies whenever my wife or my kids talk to me too. Yeah, it's cool. For real? These are terms that will, of course, apply to everything, but it doesn't really give meaning. What's truly difficult with natural language generation is to write an email reply, for example, that totally addresses the point and knowing when to stop. You can continue writing forever without knowing how much is enough, because you can always add more information. And not to say, not just machines, I mean, even us human would have struggled to know when we should be stop explaining something. So natural language generation is naturally a bit more in the future in order to do it good. But When it comes to natural language understanding, it's something that the technology we regard as quite mature already. So all we need to do is to take a given block of text, whether it's a sentence for chat or a big block of text from a document, a contract, for example, or a user manual, and break it down page by page, paragraph by paragraph, sentence by sentence, word by word, and then we would have a better understanding in order to know what we need to do about it. So NLU is a subset of the NLP. There's a lot of similar buzzword that we can talk about. Oh yeah, it's machine learning, it's AI, it's cool. Yeah, but even within that, you have picture, facial recognition, you have text, and even within text, as you can see, NLU is the subset. And you can also see that the speech recognition and text-to-speech is completely on the outside. It's not relevant in this field. And sentiment analysis has been mentioned quite a lot about the buzz of how we can actually understand the sentiment of incoming. We've tried that also for the Norwegian. We are able to classify text where there is a positive or negative tone, but at the end of the day, we just don't know what value it brings. And therefore, it just remains that one of the things that we've tried, it works, but then what? But what we do realize that it is very relevant is the ability for the paraphrase, the natural language, parsing, relation extraction, so that we can actually understand fully what the inquiry is about, so that we're able to do the necessary action to be helpful to our customer's customer. Now, these are the slides that I have taken from our chief data scientist, Vikash, which you saw on the screen a few ago. And I would have to tell you that I do not know much about what's on these slides, but I will kind of just want to walk you through it from the perspective of somebody who works with the technology, understanding that it needs to work and how it needs to work without actually knowing all the details. I've had people who spoke to me about, yeah, do you really use deep learning? Or are you talking about just having a lot of keywords recognitions? Well, at the end of the day, I would like to say it really doesn't matter. When we work with commercializing technology, building a product that people are willing to buy, what is really important is that our solution, our products, can actually solve the problem with the customer. Now, when it comes to building a very good natural language understanding engine, what is really important is that, number one, it needs to be accurate. You will need to be able to, doesn't really matter when and how and from who, to have a high chance of understanding what the incoming inquiry is about. In terms of chat, usually the market standard now is about 85, 90%. Given even more training data, you can get up to 95%. There will always be people who just write random gibberish. It doesn't really matter. But that's the range that we're shooting for. In terms of email bots, we are able to train the bot with a few thousand examples in order to get to 90 to 95% accuracy, where you can accurately understand which type of inquiry it is about, as well as the information that you expect to extract within the email. And that is, according to some of the cases that we have been part of, it's already above 30% higher than our nearest competitor. Okay, having the accuracy is one thing. Of course, given enough data, anyone can achieve high accuracy. And when we're talking about the large block of text such as email, if you were doing it with a data scientist using the traditional method, you probably need upward of 1 million to tens of million examples in order to train it good. We're able to train it to build the model in a way that you only need as few as a few hundred to as much as 3,000 to 4,000, and we will be able to achieve 90% plus accuracy. And of course, in the data science, in the AI world, there is nothing that is 100. I could ask you what is 1 plus 1, and you tell me that's 2, and I would be saying, are you sure? Because I was referring to binary. It might still be 2, but the answer is written form is at least 10. So this is what we're shooting for: 90% accuracy with as few training examples needed as possible. And the way we do it is in the few slides that I'll be explaining to you in upcoming. So When we get the word coming in, of course, you tier them apart: subject, object, verb, different sorts of a grammar. And there are different ways of doing it, of course. The classical NLP, it's can, of course, using the different models, different ways of chaining them together. At the end, you get the output. Of course, with deep learning, you save a bit of trying and training things together, but then you will still have you still need to build whatever the number of nodes that is needed, number of layers that is needed, in order to make sure that the output is at the very least comparable to the classical NLP models. And for us, now it's interesting. What am I crazy to show? Like, this is technically our NLU architecture within the inside, but for us, it's about building the product. It really doesn't matter what's inside or if the inside is shared by within the community, because what we believe is that it takes a lot more than just chaining these together to build a good product. But in short, what we do have is there is, of course, the needed functions that needs to be chained together to tear it apart, run it parallel, different sort of analysis, and then at the end of the day, you put them together and you offer your best assessment of the incoming inquiry on whether, I believe this email is about password needed for the IT support, or I believe this is some system being hacked, or this is a 501. And the system name, as well as the newest build number, has been fetched from the inquiry as well. So all of these things will be munched down through all of these different functions. There are, of course, a few of these standard Python libraries like Torch or Rasa has also been offering these things, but we have also decided afterward to move away from that, and instead we will build our own. And that's how we have, after many trial and errors, tuning, configuring, how to chain this together in the correct way in order to achieve the goal that I've mentioned, which is to have the highest possible accuracy with the minimum possible training data. And of course, on top of that, having the model itself is not enough. You still need the necessary language data pre-trained to recognize the synonyms, not to say the least. There are so many different ways of writing I in the Norwegian, in the different dialects, that they practically means the same thing. So there are many more of these examples, and they will all be fed into the language data in order to further cut down the need of training it from blank. Of course, it's much easier for us to train a person to work in a bank if the person already knows the language, versus to train somebody who doesn't know anything. And that's the difference. And that's how we've managed to keep the number of training data low. So for Chatbot, this is another illustration of why chat is more easier than email. Because for the chat, all you have to do is just understand the intention, and then you need to just pull out the necessary information within the sentence. How's the weather in Oslo today? Yeah, we know there's date in there, there's a time element, and there's also the location. And then understanding the weather, boom, you pump them into the API, you get the answer, and you present it. End of story. But for email bot, it's slightly more complex, because you need to understand, of course, the type of inquiry, the same way you understand the intents, but within an email, you might have multiple intents, and you definitely have a lot more entities. You might even have more entities than within what you expect to find in the chat. I can be asking you about the weather of Oslo and Stockholm and Denmark, and how are they different from each other. In an email, this is where you usually get these complex inquiries that you need to break down the inquiry a lot more in order to truly understand what it is about. Of course, we're also using ML Flow to track the performance in order to make sure that we tune. One thing is, of course, having the model that works for a customer. Everyone is happy, but for us, we also have to watch for the bill and the hosting, because it's not exactly cheap with the GPU machines, and we need to make sure we need to run it in the most optimal way to make sure that of course, every time you press the train button, all the data gets sent to the NLU, and then when you train, it takes a lot of GPU power. And then every time you call it, it will be less. But then at the end of the day, how do we balance it? So this is how it's been done. So as I mentioned, having the NLU engine on the bottom, it's really cool and all, but we also need to be able to interact with it. Yeah, we have an AI training team who understands how to operate, how this NLU works in order to make the most out of it. But ultimately, if Simplify were to grow, we would need to have a training interface. And that is just as important, if not more important, than the NLU itself. Because having an NLU that you require data scientists to work on, it really doesn't get you much further. They are a lot easier to recruit people who understands emails and chat than to recruit people who understands Python and data science. So here's the Simplified Studio, a bit of a screenshot. I'll show you guys a little bit of a demo afterward as well. This is how you define, for example, for the email, the types of emails, different types. Maybe the subject contains a certain. This is to further restrict the need for training with blank. If it is a customer inquiry, it's in there. It's most likely is about the customer inquiry and so forth. And this is how we can quickly get the bot up to a high percentage of success rates. And then the further on, we will be defining, of course, the entities of what you need to expect to extract from the emails as well, whether it's address, email, whatever. And then from the training interface, this is all the magic happens. You load the training data in here, let it be 200, let it be 2000. And then you have the AI trainer who marks the email with the information of what they expect to understand. The name, the amount, the intent. Okay, I need to file a claim or whatever, or I need to establish a deposit, and defining the type of inquiry. And you do that again and again and again. And then you send it to the GPU machine for the training. And then the bot will starting to understand what an email should be, how it should be interpreted. So this is where all the magic happens. And as you can see, none is required to know Python or data science or anything. You just have to explain it to the screen. From your human perspective, how would you have read this email? Which part is important? What information needs to be included? And the bot will figure it out through the training. And of course, as I mentioned, understanding it itself is not enough. You need to be able to build the automation thereafter. So we have this process flow that reminds a lot of people of Visio. And with the necessary API connections that can be built, also the interface that reminds people of Postman. And this is how we're able to chain technology together, both the new technology in AI NLU and the old technology with the traditional system development and API integrations into a holistic digital employee that can actually do work for people. At this moment, we have digital employees out there that are answering hundreds of thousands of emails and documents for our customers as well as chat. So it's a solution that has been built, it has been proven, and it works. And I'm keen to show you about how it actually works in reality. Let me see how much time we have. We're doing very good with time, actually. Very good. So within the training interface, this is basically, so of course, things have already come in, has already been marked by a person. Either it's a person being marked or the bot would also, through the previous training, would be able to recognize some of it, so you don't actually have to tag everything by yourself. But ultimately, this is the things that are being processed. And once there has been tagged one by one, okay, for example, oh, this is actually an address. Oh, sorry, the bot didn't call it. So you just highlight it, press an A, and then it will be marked. It's kind of like this game with the hotkeys. You will be able to do the things again and again and again. And of course, if you're not sure of, you can also see a bit how confident the bot is about the certain things, and also what actions has been done. Of course, a lot of the things can be built. Let me see. This is the annotation setup. This is how you can take all of the informations, entities, email types, in order to build the interface that you just saw. And then once you're done, then you can go into the actions where you can say, okay, for this kind of pension requirement, you go to move to the folder, you produce the reply, or you call an API. For this one is the fresh desk, and so forth. can build some basic logics in there as well. So this is how the holistic bot is being built. And then afterward, of course, you need to configure that it needs to be listening to a certain mail. And then from there on, then of course, you will be able to have it to fetch the emails every 3 minutes or so. Now, email bots are flagship, but the thing is, it has also been the very common question we get in our meetings was like, yeah, what about documents? What about attachments? And that's like, oh yeah, that's right. That's why we need to have Documentbot as well. And that's how we built it. Using our, it's very similar. This is also the PDFs that you'll be getting. You'll be highlighting the informations just like you would have done with an email bot. And this is how we train. And then from there on, you'll also be sending to the training queue. So it's very, very similar to what you have been with email bot. But you might ask, there are gazillion different document processing solutions out there. Abby, IBM have a DataCat and all of these things. And we do differ a lot in that sense. Number one is that we were more or less being pushed to make this product to satisfy the need of answering emails. Number two, with our NLU engine, we're not only able to extract the information, like, okay, if you see total, you go and you fetch the amount right next to it. We are also able to extract the information outside of text. So it's not just you blindly extract the text, but you also interpret what that means in order to do more processing. For example, if you were to read a CV can describe a certain ways of experience in many different ways, but you will be able to interpret that and to categorize them. This is a person who is confident. This is one who is a very management candidate. This is one who is very shy. And then you will be able to use that information for further processing. The interpretation is where we stay ahead of our competition. So, back on this thing. Yes. Last but not least, I would like to also mention that when we are building a product, an AI, it's new technology. It sounds scary. What if people loses a lot of jobs? What if our data leak to other countries and so forth? So there are many things that we meet as challenge that are actually not technical, but it's equally crucial for us to have the success. And I urge all of you to think about these things when you guys are building the solutions, because Simplify alone can't do all of the things by ourselves. We would like everyone to promote that AI is not scary, AI is useful, AI can actually do something good. And for us, hosting, how it's important for us to make sure that the solutions are hosted on the correct place to make sure that data don't leak into other places. There is the regulation that came out in November last year, SCREMS 2, which would actually put a stop on foreign countries having solutions in within Norway to take the data into their home country. A very short example would be Azure. Data hosted in Azure. What happens if Microsoft demands to see it, for example, or if the U.S. government decided to see? What would Microsoft be doing? So this is actually some of the things that is important to think about. Is your data safe? Of course, it needs to be on cloud. Most of them actually is on cloud. But is cloud safe? It's a very good question to think about whenever you are hosting, not just the customer data, training data, but also everything around as well. Of course, decided to put GDPR privacy in the middle because it is actually the center of attention. Whenever we talk about AI, first thing we think about is data. And then the first thing we think about data is privacy. You have the foundation to actually acquire the training data that you're using. Have you actually checked with how does we can satisfy the GDPR requirements? The right to forget, the right to provide information, the right to delete, all of these things that is important to have to make sure that you don't end up on the front page of VG or Aftenposten. And of course, As geeky as I am as well, I like to build solutions for fun. But then, of course, some bloody lessons that we've learned over the years is that it's important also that we build solutions that actually provide business value. Guys, solve a business problem. Otherwise, people will regard that, of course, it's a cool project. Let's use our innovation budget for it. Innovation Nori probably would chip in too, but that's not the point. What we want to do is to actually integrate AI, machine learning into part of our everyday life. It should not feel a difference that when you send an email to an organization, to a bank or insurance company, that it's the bot who processes it and reply to you. It really doesn't matter. You won't notice anyway. But it's important that it's becoming the norm. The society start accepting it because number one, it's not scary. Number two, it's safe. And number three, it actually generates business value for me. And only when we're able to do that, we will be able to actually having a much more success with what we do. And this is the main reason why I dedicated this session to talk everyone away from just thinking language is chatbot. No, there's a lot more after that. We have evolved our language engine to process more than just one sentence of 150 characters of chat. And I believe everyone should be able to do that too. And find ways, other type of solutions where we are also needing to do this transformation. So thank you. If there's any questions or comments, feel free to contact me or colleagues at Simplified.